Dear Helen, there seems to be some conflict between my humanness and the empty awareness that I am. An 18-year marriage ended 4 years ago, and for the first time, I am absolutely loving being alone and see quite clearly that I am empty awareness. This is so peaceful and love delving deep into that. However, when my attention turns to the world and being with people or making new friends, there is some confusion as to what I want. As if a part of me always wants to be alone and another part of me wants to be with people. But the seemingly human side of me feels it's quite dangerous being with people and brings up a lot of fear. Shoulds and shouldn'ts, people pleasing, rebellion, etc. I've done a lot of work on myself in therapies, 12-step programs, and non-duality, etc. But it seems like an endless task, and I never seem to resolve issues of my uncomfortableness and fear with people, which stops me enjoying this. Although I love being around them at times, it's always this that pushes me into wanting to be alone. So there is this sort of push and pull going on, and I'm wondering what the crux of it is. I could deal with rather than keeping going around in circles with reoccurring thought patterns and old behavior that I never seem to get to the bottom of. Could you say anything about this, please? So, this is very similar to my experience when I was waking up, this fear of being around others. And it comes from this idea, it stems from this idea that there are separate beings, that we are separate beings. It stems from this underlying assumption that we all have, don't we? We all start from this idea that we're separate to one another. So I would suggest for this, really beginning to contemplate, to ask the question, is there really any other beings? And I know it sounds like a crazy question. When I first asked myself that, there really seemed like lots of beings and lots of beings that I was having a challenge with at the time. But the silence, when we recognize the silence or the field or the awareness, as you called it here, is that separate? Our essential nature, our deepest nature, where does that end? Where does my awareness stop and your awareness start? Is there really such a dividing line here? And it's the assumption that we're separate that brings fear. Because the moment I feel separate to anything, there is a fear arising. So I can feel comfortable when I'm on my own, and then when I'm around other beings, I start to feel uncomfortable. I start to feel really more and more uncomfortable by the moment. And it's really from this idea that there's other beings outside of me, separate to me, that I can't control, that I can't be sure of my safety. And the people pleasing starts then, as you said here, this person has said here. The push pull is I want to get away from these imagined other beings. I want to get away from them. At the same time, I'm longing for this deep intimacy and connection with life. So how am I going to deal with that? Well, really just to examine this core idea, isn't it? That there is, in fact, another being outside of me. There is an edge to me. There is a point where I stop and somebody else starts. Somebody else's beingness starts here. Is that really true? And we really look. Yes, my body stops here, but what about me? How far do I reach? How far do I go in all directions from here? And we can check this out right now. If I can't find an edge to my beingness, or the silences we were just listening to, then how can I be sure that there are any other beings? There's lots of other bodies, all these bodies gathered here in this room and online. How many beings are here? How can we be certain of that? So I'd really suggest just checking that out and questioning. Feeling separate to anything is going to bring fear. It's going to bring emotion, negative emotion, and suffering. Because the very moment I feel separate to anything, I'm going to feel it's out of my control. And I can't control my safety if there's something else that is outside of my purview. So I hope that helps.